Okay, modulations. Now there are several different types of modulations, but most are really easy to understand. So let's go through those first, and then I'll tell you about a more complex type of modulation that I need to talk about a bit more. So, first of all, that's the semitone modulation. Just playing anything in any key. And then going up a semitone. Now I'm using this dominant chord that I played at the end in between to transition to the same thing, a semitone up. Okay, so that's simple enough, right? Now you can do the same thing with a whole tone. So let's see what that sounds like. Now these types of modulations were used pretty often in the 70s and 80s, although they haven't gotten out of use completely. But these are very simple to understand. Going up a minor third might be a bit more interesting. Now why? Check it out. Well, it sounds fine, but what's so interesting about that? Well, we were just in the key of B flat. Now in B flat minor, we're actually in D flat major. We take the same chords, and so instead of going up a minor third, you could also say we started borrowing from the relative minor. However, it's not entirely borrowed from the relative minor. We were playing 1, 4, 5, 1, and if we're borrowing it from the relative minor, we would play 1 minor, 4 minor, 5 minor, or maybe dominant, 1, 1. That was a Picardian third. I ended a minor key on a major chord. That's Picardian third, but whatever. In this case, we were taking the major chords that resemble the same functions within this minor key. I ended up going from B flat major to D flat major. Now, it's D flat major, not B flat minor. We might have borrowed it from B flat minor, but when we're playing all of this, D flat ends up sounding like the tonic. So that makes it the key of D flat major. Now these are pretty simple types of modulations to understand. Another thing to understand is you can borrow from the relative minor in a much more direct manner. So let's play in B flat again and do the same thing, 1, 4, 5, 1. Now we're going to borrow from relative minor. But wait, is it borrowing? This is not borrowing. Right now, with what we've played something that's very typical in a minor key. The 4 chord, the 5 chord, except it's a dominant, borrowed from harmonic minor. And we go back to the tonic as a minor chord. By the time we've played all of this, it's clear as a bell that we're now in a minor key. That's not borrowing anymore, it's a modulation. So what determines key is which chord sounds like the tonic. We can analyze all we want, we can piece things together and say, well, actually, it would fit into this scale. It doesn't matter whether it would fit into that scale. What matters is what sounds like the tonic. That's what determines what the key is, because that determines the entire context of the other chords, what they end up sounding like. E flat minor sounds like the 4 chord because B flat minor sounds like the tonic. Okay, now still, these are much simpler modulations to understand, but you can modulate using a pivot chord, and that brings you anywhere you want to go. Let's do a little challenge. Give me a second. Now these are musicians' dice. They're a set of dice, 12 in total, containing all the different types of notes. So I'm going to let the dice roll determine from which key I'm going and to which key I'm going. Let's see if I can work it out. So let's say the die that ends up on that side is the die that I have to move towards, is the key that I have to move towards, and on this side it's the one that I actually start in. So let's see what it ends up being. We've got C and A. We're going to move from C major to A major. It will be easier the other way around. If you're in A major, moving to C major is just the minor third up modulation that I just showed you. But now we're going to play in C major and modulate to A major using a pivot chord. Now, knowing how this stuff works, it's actually not that hard for me. We can do it in all sorts of ways, but first I want to make sure you feel that we're in the key of C major. Because C needs to feel like 1, and it does feel like 1 right now, doesn't it? Okay, so we can feel we're in the key of C major. Now, any chord that would fit into the key in any possible way, that also fits into the key of A major, can be a pivot chord. Let's see if I can come up with, I don't know, 3 ways to do so. Now, one would be take the secondary dominant to the 6th chord. Except we're not going to the 6th chord, we're going to our new tonic. Let's see what that sounds like. Well, there you have it, we're in the key of A. We ended up there using an E7. And we can go back, going to C, and there you have it, we're back in the key of C. Let's see if I can come up with another way to go to the key of A major. Now another pivot chord might be G sharp diminished. That's kind of weird, but it's a replacement for E7. It's a dim substitution, so it would work just as well. Instead of G sharp diminished, we can use B diminished. It's a minor third up, so this might be a bit more interesting. Okay, so we're in the key of C. Here's C again. Let's see if I can make this work. Yeah, we're in the key of A. This sounds like the tonic now. Let's go back to C. Okay, so we're in C again. Can I come up with another way, one that might be a bit more original, because the diminished chord just replaces the secondary dominants. Now, you could do it in a much simpler manner. Let's say we're going to D minor. D minor is just a 2 chord in the key of C, but it's also the 4 minor chord in the key of A. In order to make sure that it sounds a bit more like it also belongs in the key of A major, what you can do in the major key is play a minor 6 as a 4 minor chord. It helps make it sound like a resolution to A. And to increase that even more, going from this to a minor major 7th chord actually borrows the note, the major 7th, that's the major 3rd, in our new key. So let's see what this would sound like. First, let's make sure we can feel we're in the key of C again. Okay, now we're going to D minor. Well, that's clearly the key of A. We're already back. Still, I know I said 3, but I want to come up with one that's a bit more original than we already had. So, let's see if we can come up with another one. C. Now, instead of taking a bland chord from the key of C major, maybe we can take a chord that's a bit more special, and that's not a secondary dominant, so maybe a semitone shift chord. So one would be F sharp half diminished, but that's kind of weird. Maybe we can do B flat major 7th, because it also works as the flat 2 major chord in the key of A. Let's see if I can make that sound right. So let's see. Of course, first I want to make sure we can feel we're in the key of C. Well, I'd say that works. Those two chords are just flat 6 and flat 7, both borrowed from the relative minor in the key of A. But the relative minor is actually the same collection of notes as the key of C major. So we can end up back in C major just as well. And here we are in C major. Okay, maybe that was a bit too easy. So let's see if we can come up with another modulation to play in this case. Maybe going from F sharp to F. I don't know, going down a semitone, that's kind of weird, but we're gonna try. Go from F sharp to F. So what could we do here? Well, first thing that comes to mind is the 3 chord, the 3 minor chord, which can just act as a 4 minor chord in the key of F. But we already saw something similar, so I'm gonna try and come up with something different. Then there's the 5 chord that can work as a flat 6, flat 7, up to F. So that might be a bit more interesting. Let's see if we can make it work. Now of course first I'm going to play 1, 4, 5, 1 to play the tonic, the subdominant and the dominant. So all the notes have been represented and this helps us anchor F sharp as the tonic of what we're hearing right now. Well, in case you didn't notice already, we're in the key of F. So, how did that work? Exactly what I said. We were in F sharp, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, and the 5 ended up being the flat 6 of the F we're going towards. And one typical way to do this in game and film music, for example, would be to go from flat 6 to flat 7 to 1. It sounds very natural. We're already accustomed to this sound. Maybe I can come up with a different way to modulate from F sharp to F. It's probably possible. I can come up with something. So let's see, what if we take the sharp 4 chord and play it as a diminished chord. Not as half diminished, but as diminished. Because diminished can be moved up and down in minor thirds. And that's pretty interesting. So what can we do with this? Well, it's C diminished, but also A diminished, also F sharp diminished, so it would work well going to a subdominant, but we already knew that because it's C sharp 4. But then the key of F, it would also work going to G minor, giving us a 2, 5, 1 back to F. So maybe we can pull this one off. Going to the sharp 4 chord in F sharp, in order to make it resolve to a 2, 5, 1 in the key of F. Let's see what that might sound like. I need to go to a different bass note. Let's see if I can figure this out a bit different. So I want to end on F sharp diminished actually. Can we make this work? Now, how will we end up on a sharp 4 chord? It will be after the 4 chord. So, okay, so maybe this. Well, it did work. We ended up in the key of F. So this can be a pretty interesting exercise to give you more harmonic fluency. Just tell yourself to go from any key to any other key and see how many chords you can come up with that will let you pivot from one key to the next and see if you can play it in such a way that it sounds logical and musical, and so you're making a fluent transition from one key to the next. This is how modulations work at the highest level. Now, to be clear, I use diminished chords there at the end because diminished chords can be moved up in minor thirds, letting us go to all sorts of keys instantly. So as long as you're going to a key that's a minor third or several minor thirds removed from your original key, a diminished chord will always work. But you can be a bit more creative with it, see what you come up with, and if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe because you'll get more of it. See you guys next time.